Welcome to Episode 14, Kickoff Checklist and First 30 Days, where we translate preparation into action and set the tone for a successful assessment. The first month determines rhythm, expectations, and credibility, so momentum matters more than perfection. A strong kickoff aligns scope, roles, and timelines before evidence work begins, reducing later confusion and rework. It gives leadership visibility and teams clarity on what success looks like. Many programs stumble because they rush to collect artifacts without confirming boundaries or ownership. The kickoff phase prevents that by front-loading structure, a clear plan, shared language, and early wins. In these first 30 days, the focus is building a foundation that makes the rest of the journey predictable and calm. Momentum at this stage is discipline in motion, setting pace, not speed. Defining scope, systems, and boundaries is the first essential task after kickoff. This means naming exactly which business units, applications, data types, and environments are in play. Ambiguous scope leads to wasted effort as teams either over-collect evidence or miss critical systems entirely. Start with a list of all assets that process or store sensitive data and confirm which are internal versus hosted. Draw boundaries clearly. Include dependencies like identity services or backup systems if they influence the control picture. Document inclusions and exclusions with rationale so reviewers understand the reasoning. This scope statement becomes the anchor for sampling, testing, and reporting. When teams agree on scope early, every later step, from evidence polls to assessor conversations, stays focused and defensible. Confirming assessment type and factors comes next, translating strategy into structure. Decide whether the effort will follow an E1, I1, or R2 assurance pathway, and verify that everyone understands what that means for evidence volume and depth. Factors such as organization size, data sensitivity, and third-party exposure refine which controls apply. Record these choices in the official system and communicate them to all participants, including assessors and external partners. Choosing too ambitious a level can overwhelm teams. Choosing too light a level can underdeliver on expectations. The goal is proportional assurance, matching rigor to risk and resources. Confirming factors early also shapes the timeline, as higher assurance levels demand more milestones and QA gates. When type and factors are settled, the project has a clear shape. Establishing roles and communication channels builds accountability and trust. Assign a project manager, technical leads, control owners, and an executive sponsor. Clarify who approves decisions, who coordinates with assessors, and who maintains documentation. Create a single communication map that shows which channels to use for which topics: email for formal notices, chat for quick questions, and shared drives for evidence exchange. Set norms for response times and escalation so questions do not linger. A kickoff without communication discipline quickly devolves into chaos. Defined roles and channels make it possible to move quickly without losing control. When everyone knows whom to ask and where to post updates, information flows freely and accurately. Creating a milestone calendar and gates transforms intent into a visual plan. Identify the key deliverables: scope approval, evidence collection, internal QA, submission, and assign target dates to each. Add gates for dependency checks, such as confirming sampling readiness or completing assessor reviews before moving forward. Build in recurring checkpoints to measure progress and detect drift. Visual tools like Gantt charts or dashboards help leadership see where the project stands at a glance. The milestone calendar is not just a schedule, it is a communication tool that shows accountability and progress. Sharing it early demonstrates professionalism and helps stakeholders plan their workloads around critical dates. When everyone can see the road ahead, deadlines become commitments rather than guesses. An evidence plan defines what will be collected, where it lives, and who owns it. Start by mapping each control or requirement to its evidence source: ticketing systems, configurations, policies, or logs. Assign an owner to each source and clarify the expected artifact format. Establish naming conventions and folder structures so files can be reused without confusion. Agree on how screenshots, exports, and narratives will be dated and labeled. An early evidence plan prevents duplication and missing pieces later, especially when multiple teams contribute. It also helps avoid last-minute data hunts that cause delays or QA failures. When the evidence pipeline is organized from the start, every submission feels deliberate and confident. The sampling plan complements the evidence plan by defining populations, sample sizes, and time periods for testing. Identify what activities are frequent enough to sample, such as user access reviews or patch deployments, and gather the total population lists. Decide whether sampling will be random, stratified, or risk-based, and document the reasoning. Align the time window with the assessment period so data stays relevant. Assign ownership for running queries and retaining results for traceability. Sampling should feel like a planned process, not a scramble to prove compliance. A defined plan ensures that when testing begins, reviewers know exactly what data to pull and why those records represent the whole. This preparation keeps scoring discussions objective and efficient. The inheritance plan with service providers defines what controls will rely on external attestations. List all platforms, managed services, and cloud providers, then note which controls each inherits. Gather provider assurance documents, certificate letters, reports, or security summaries, and verify that coverage aligns with your systems and regions. Define who validates these artifacts for currency and scope. Document customer-side responsibilities that remain, such as key management or monitoring inherited layers. Building this plan early prevents gaps and duplication. It also clarifies for assessors that shared responsibility is understood and managed. When inheritance is well defined, assurance becomes efficient because teams prove only what they truly own. A risk register and corrective action plan, CAP, placeholders provide structure for tracking findings as they emerge. During the first 30 days, create the empty framework that will later house issues, owners, and remediation dates. Define how new risks or gaps will be logged and how severity will be assigned. Include fields for description, root cause, and expected completion date. By establishing this framework early, the program can absorb discoveries without losing momentum. It also shows reviewers that risk management is part of governance, not a reactive step. When CAP placeholders exist before findings appear, responses feel organized rather than panicked. This foresight is one of the small disciplines that signal maturity. Tool setup for MyCSF and evidence storage converts planning into infrastructure. Configure roles, permissions, and folders in MyCSF to match the defined scope and ownership. Integrate ticketing or document repositories where evidence will be stored. Test upload processes to ensure file names, sizes, and formats are compatible. Create a shared index that lists where each control's evidence will live. Early tool setup prevents technical friction later when deadlines tighten. Treat this as part of the kickoff deliverable, not an administrative afterthought. Proper configuration makes collaboration intuitive and keeps artifacts safe, consistent, and easy to retrieve during QA or future renewals. Meeting cadence brings order to daily operations. Schedule short stand-ups for task coordination and weekly working sessions for deeper problem solving. Add monthly steering committee reviews for executive visibility. Define agendas and note-taking standards so meetings produce actionable outcomes rather than repeated discussions. Distribute minutes within a day of each meeting to maintain accountability. This rhythm keeps the project alive between milestones, ensuring that small issues surface before they become delays. When cadence is predictable, participants can manage workloads confidently. It also reinforces transparency. Everyone knows when and where updates happen, reducing the need for status chases. Stakeholder briefings and expectations management anchor communication beyond the core team. Conduct briefings with leadership, assessors, and key business units to explain objectives, scope, and schedule. Clarify what each stakeholder will receive and when. Status updates, risk reports, or decision requests. Manage expectations around effort and timing so there are no surprises when resource needs peak. Early engagement builds goodwill and reduces resistance. It also ensures executives understand their role in approvals and sign-offs, which often become bottlenecks if unplanned. A kickoff that includes well-framed stakeholder messaging sets a tone of professionalism and shared purpose that lasts through certification. A 30-day deliverables checklist provides narrative structure for the first month. By the end of day 30, teams should have approved scope, confirmed assessment type, established roles, configured tools, drafted evidence and sampling plans, defined inheritance and risk frameworks, and launched governance cadence. These deliverables mark real progress. They turn ambition into organized momentum. Each item reinforces the next. Clear scope enables sampling, roles support cadence, and tools enable evidence flow. Document completion of each task in a simple summary for leadership, showing that the project is moving as planned. A narrative checklist is not just a report. It is proof that the foundation is built and stable. Alignment, commitment, and momentum define a successful kickoff. When teams begin with clear scope, documented plans, working tools, and steady communication, the rest of the assessment unfolds naturally. Momentum does not mean rushing. It means moving with purpose and coordination. The first 30 days establish culture as much as structure, transparency, accountability, and responsiveness. When those habits form early, assurance becomes smoother, confidence grows, and results arrive on time. The kickoff phase is where readiness transforms into execution, turning frameworks into living practice. Start strong, stay organized, and the entire program will reflect the discipline and trust you built from day one.